Wait, did it happen to you too?
No, I turned it off because I thought we were done.
Oh no, my computer just straight up crashed.
Wacky.
Garrett, did you set the episode?
I think so.
Rename the stream.
Rename the stream, oh my god.
It'll force you to do it every time. But at least when it says Minecraft time, it's actually
Not even spelled right.
I can't keep track. Started. Just gotta.
It just picked up the stream where it left off.
Oh, okay. Well,
I think. I don't know.
let me hand off my computer.
Did Alexa just leave again?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. It just straight up died. Let me see if I can set the episode.
Uh-huh.
Alright,
Yeah, I
There-
don't know why it sounds like that.
there we are.
Is this the custom one we just did?
Yep.
Oh boy, I got the perfect colors.
Hurry up and draw a beautiful picture before G gets in here.
I don't think he's watching the stream anymore. Well, he might be. There's 2 likes. Lex is a PP by Gart.
Lexus and Fifi by Guy. Poetry by Garrett. Lex equal
Do
PP.
you see my drawing? Yes, I do. I see how it is.
Alright, perfect.
I like it how the details of the he had to color it in.
I see it's time for some drawful. Quick head count. 1, 2, 3, 4 of you. We'll do 2 rounds then. Piece of cake. Let's get away from this menu screen, huh? Okay, I've sent a prompt to each of your devices. Something odd or funny, like Thursdays or a trash can at Arby's. Draw a picture on your device that would have that title, and when you're done, hit send. You'll get points for each player that can correctly guess your title. So, go! Do it!
Cheers.
Thing is, now the titles can be literally anything, so the game gets 1,000 times harder. Okay, I did it.
Well, again, I submitted. I don't know why it's not actually going through.
It's just taking a bit. It's taking its time.
Just spam click.
Overload the server. Spam click.
Well, like, it's not a button anymore, though. It's a loading symbol, and I just have to wait.
Oh.
This is stupid. Just submit. It's not that complex of a drawing. I didn't make a Picasso, I made a fucking Lex.
Lex, I don't think it's gonna go.
What the fuck? It's shame 'cause it's beautiful.
What is your bandwidth like?
My bandwidth's fine. My network's working just fine. I don't know why it's not submitted. We go to speedtest.net.
30-second warning.
Oh, one upload.
This game will be a lot less fun if you don't get your drawing in.
King of 8 billion.
This sucks, honestly. Nope,
I have
nope,
all
fucked
your
up.
drawings now,
Got kicked out.
and as much as I want to keep them to myself,
I think it just
Oh,
submitted.
Take a look at the first
Then let me in. Okay. Yeah, I refreshed the page.
We don't freaking know what it's gonna be. It's gonna be
I
something.
know.
You'll know exactly what it is.
I know exactly what it is.
and here are your choices. One of them is the real title. And
That was
here are your
easy.
choices.
That's an easy one, honestly. Thanks for
Come on,
fucking
is this even a game anymore?
Oh god, we gave Flex 3,000 points already.
He's already ahead.
yeah,
points,
but
losers.
it said it's also. I wonder what this is.
Okay, here are your choices. Okay,
Oh wait, no, it's the wrong one, wrong one. And we all.
Oh.
I realized, wait a minute, no, Car is the meme. The comedy moment.
Oh wow.
God, one letter.
Gart.
I forgot Gart Car is a thing. Gart Car Second. What happened?
type in a title now.
What?
It'll be painfully obvious the moment we get into voting.
It will.
And here are your choices.
Oh, actually, this isn't painfully obvious.
Let's see
There's
what
two
you
possible
picked.
answers.
Well, oh, you got it, so.
I like it how we all know our sense of humor, so we all
Yeah,
know what the
fun.
answer's gonna be.
I literally made this title and the last one.
That is a flaw of this whole thing.
Well, it's just gonna be two prompts that are exactly the same. Great.
Enter your titles now.
Well, I say beans.
It's just-
Here are your choices.
I'm not sure about this one, honestly.
And here are your picks.
No, it's wrong.
No.
It's wrong.
Damn.
Wrong. Nope.
How do you guys not know?
Interested in beans?
I thought that said invested in beans.
Invested in beans. Invested in beans. They're more valuable than Apple stock nowadays.
The next round of drawing prompts
Oh, I hate
Oh,
whoever
boy.
made this.
I hate whoever made this. But I do have an advantage when it comes to drawing it, so...
Bet
Garrett probably made this title.
I did it.
God, I hate this.
You did it, Reddit.
Lex, I think to submit you have to refresh the page.
I haven't submitted yet.
I think I know what he got.
I'm putting a lot of effort into it. It's a very important drawing.
I know exactly what it is. I know because I made it, and it always takes so long to make.
I think I know what it is too.
Just rolling the entire screen, I guess.
Alright, I got a little lazy, but whatever. It's still quality stuff.
Lex, did you submit?
Oh, I refreshed and now I'm trying to get back in. It says error joining.
Only 30 seconds left to finish your drawing. Maybe you should
Not
just
letting me back in,
say
guys.
now
Help,
so you
help.
don't take too long and miss your chance.
Well, I'm fucked.
Just refresh the page.
No, it's making me redraw the whole thing? I had such
I
a
got your
good,
drawings.
intricate
Some
drawing
of them
too.
are a total mess. I love it. Let's see the first piece of art. What are your titles?
Now I'm just pissed. Now I'm not having fun because that's definitely called a jackpot. Yeah, I'm not putting in real answers.
Lex mumbles
Something's
quietly to himself.
And here are your choices.
I'm dropping out for the rest of the game.
Who freaking died?
Or why is your audio so bad?
I don't know.
Corey's audio sounds like crunchy ice cream.
That's good. Lex, vote.
Pick anything.
I left.
You left.
Yeah, because I'm just pissed now.
Just do it on your computer and
Yeah,
Yeah,
stop
do it on your
doing
computer.
Here are your picks.
Ooh.
Peter Griffin sound
How does
effect.
Salmon
number
already
2.
have a streak of like freaking? Oh wait, no, I have the streak.
Let's take a look at our next drawing.
Yep, okay.
What? Yo, come on, Lexer.
Did Lex just go to bed?
I closed the game because honestly, I'm pissed.
Why? Because it doesn't work on DS?
Hey,
I wasn't
serious.
using the DS. I was using my computer.
Oh.
But it decided not to submit. It just decided fuck you. So I refreshed and it just deleted my drawing. So
And
yeah, I'm not
here are your
playing
choices.
until the next round.
Oh.
I'm fucking pissed.
I don't know.
Well, it's probably not hypocrites. That's almost certainly the one that auto-filled for me.
I don't know.
Pick an answer.
This is way too arbitrary.
Let's see what people picked.
Yep. Okay.
Yup, okay.
I see stroke.
Yup, okay.
Next up,
to take a wild guess, what would it be?
Stream's got about a
Hurry up,
10
people.
second
Just
delay.
type something in.
Sam, just look at the thing on Discord.
Here are your choices.
Fear.
Fear.
I'm calling it now Defensive Dual Cloud. I'm not in
Fear.
the game, but I'm calling it that. That's Defensive Dual Cloud.
Fear. Utter terror.
Pick something.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Okay, so the jewel room.
The jewel
Yes.
cloud.
Okay, who picked what?
Chat, Jewel Cloud. Fear.
Pure terror.
And
Okay, I had an absolutely fucking amazing thing drawn, and then it forced me out, and now this is what the result is, and I hate it.
What is he? Something from.
okay, here are your choices.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't. I think I just threw Salmon for a loop.
And it is beautiful, intricate Minecraft sex drawings.
What are you gonna do? Post it on DeviantArt or something?
Jackbox for that.
What are you gonna do? Post that drawing on DeviantArt?
Garrett with the 2 whole likes.
We're gonna get the whole squad laughing.
Do you want to play that again?
Yes, this time I'll actually get
Are,
to play. Right,
do you want?
Jackbox?
Are you actually in the game?
I left after.
Oh,
'cause
so I
just-
should do new players.
Yeah, because I fucking raged out because I can't fucking stand shit like that happening. Oh boy, we get the funny colors. I'm gonna try and recreate the glory of my previous drawing. It won't be quite the same, but it'll be good.
It's something.
Player team. Lex, do you want to know where that came from?
Where what came from?
The player team.
The what?
We
Oh,
googled
player?
the-
I do want to know. I have no fucking
So me and Sarah are playing From the Depths, and I'm like, we need a billboard to assert our dominance, so I drew that.
That and cranked it up to the maximum.
Yeah,
size.
I made it so that was like 50 meters, like 50 meters high and 100 meters wide, and like it towered over the horizon.
The friggin' thing was already on a spinning radar we had to reveal it. So every now and then it would spin around and reveal it.
Player team, asserting our dominance.
It was beautiful.
It's like we should make a banner or something. I'm like, I have a better idea.
How much does From the Depths cost? I honestly want to buy it.
I can never remember. $20 maybe?
Hey, it's red. Hey, my
Le-
color's red.
Le-
for a
Lex
reason.
has put in a lot of effort into recreating his previous drawing.
It's still not as good. It will never be as good.
The second drawing is never as good as the first.
Pablo Picasso's lost masterpiece, Minecraft Sex.
Well, yeah, it's definitely not the same.
The hell, why is Toad flying around the room?
I just looked at like the joke.
Why is it so, why is it so
I can't get
angry?
to it now.
All of you.
Not as good as the previous one.
Just
I'm
for
telling
you.
you.
Something kind of weird. Like breakdancing neighbor or deep sea fishing. Draw a picture on your device that would have that title. And when you're done, hit send.
I am not expecting anybody to guess this because I don't even know if this was on the list. Oh crap!
I got my own prompts and now I hate myself.
How did you guys write that? Was this before
No,
or
it's right out of it.
after
Oh,
Corey's
it's the
computer
minimum
got
one,
shut
nice.
down? I don't even know if this word was before or after Corey's computer decided to explode.
Drawings in? Check. Let's get to the fun part. Now, use your phone to type in whatever the heck the prompt for this drawing is.
Roblox character. Player team.
Player team's bottom text.
Here are your choices. Which of these titles do you think really inspired?
Oh man, that's a good one.
Remember back in the stream where we all agreed that we shouldn't really be as racist as we are?
Okay, full disclosure, I don't know why I put the guitar in.
We don't know either. Why did you put the guitar in?
Christian rock would have been such a fucking good one. Oh great, everybody gets points except me. Oh wait, no, I get points. Nice.
Garrett went with the most generic.
I knew what the answer was because of the fact that I put
No
it
one liked mine. That's sad.
in Christian rock.
I never bother liking things, honestly.
Up next, type in
We
the
had
title. Here are your choices.
Jack!
Let's see what people picked.
It seemed believable at the time.
Seems really believable. But come on, Jack seems really believable.
Not clickbait game. What's the indicator there? Yay, I'm on the
When
board.
It says not clickbait, it's obviously
Enter your titles now.
I swear to God. Don't.
And here are your choices.
Dead or effing dead? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Okay, who picked what?
No.
Nope.
Thanks.
Dupe.
That doesn't make any sense, but okay.
I knew it.
Which one of you guys typed that in though? So it was like,
Up yours.
I mean, I guess I didn't pay attention at all during the Macbeth unit at school
3,600.
in English, so I can't really
cause it was
say
like,
one way or another.
I don't know if it was before or after Corey's computer shut down, but it's a little, it's a little scary if it was typed in before.
Oh god.
Found the answer.
And here are your choices.
That'll be amazing. Drawings always somehow make sense.
Hey, it's drawing time again.
I guess I can't draw nothing. That was an easy one.
My
How am I supposed to draw this? Oh god, I'm gonna have to be detailed, aren't I?
We believe in you, Garrett. No, we don't. We really don't.
Yeah, it appears G is not rating Macbeth again.
So, care to explain why you're taking so long?
Because he was in the bathroom and he freaking ran back.
Type in a convincing title now.
Pretend there's nothing. I had to put something.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh no! Oh, I got it wrong.
I don't
I got it
freaking
wrong.
know.
I knew exactly what it was.
And here are your picks.
I,
I know because I put it. I know what it is. It was Ohio.
I closed my eyes and clicked one.
Aw.
It was a disappointing round for me. Gotta say.
Corey guessed Ohio.
I closed my eyes and clicked randomly at the screen, then looked up.
Okay, you guys immediately know what this is.
Bro.
I'm still on top.
Oh,
Type in a title now.
I'd totally buy the lost artwork of Lex if I were you.
You got too close to the real title.
The starting bid is 20,000.
And here are your choices.
Oh.
Okay, who picked what?
Sam, man.
Damn it, it's not Minecraft.
Don't you know your lore, Sam?
No, I don't.
Look at how the like background characters just started. Ooh.
Starting bid is $20,000 for the lost artwork of Lex.
I'm gonna find a way to go back in time so I can get a picture of that.
And now, here are your choices.
Zoomer. I don't know.
I think I know exactly what it is.
And here are your picks.
Especially since I'm the one who said Morris. Or suggested
I'm the one who
Morris.
said Morris.
No, I mean I'm the one who suggested Morris originally.
Who's Morris anyway?
I don't know how to draw the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
Name for the Mona Lisa.
Zoomer.
Summer.
The boys during Zoomer break.
I kicked ass this round.
Oh
I was in
wow.
fourth
He's
last.
fighting with Garrett for
Put in your titles now.
Cone Hard San.
Telling you my handwriting is not legible. Put 'em out.
Oh, okay, no.
I don't even know,
Okay,
man.
here are your choices.
Oh.
Now I know exactly what it is.
Thanks for the points.
He's already in first place, so.
I'm just lengthening the lead. Guess who won?
Bro.
Garrett. Communism and Minecraft both won.
Do another round?
Yes.
Sure.
I don't know how to freaking draw the Mona Lisa.
Okay, awesome. Second game. I don't have to explain the rules again, right? Don't answer that. Just draw.
But I have to go into the forbidden zone of the old memes just for you guys to understand what this is. God have
I
mercy
hate
on
my
our
own
souls.
titles.
You want
I
us
think
to
that's
draw
the
your
one I came
title?
up with, actually.
Yes, I really want you all to suffer drawing my titles, but you can't, sadly.
Now that I've got all your drawings, it's time for some fun.
I can't get... Alexa's drawing is so...
Enter your titles.
I wonder what that is. Get this
All
like
your
3
titles are gonna be alike.
And here are your choices.
Get this like for the 3rd time.
I'm not
And here
sure
are your
about this
picks.
at all.
This is my own thing and I hate myself.
What have you brought upon this cursed land?
Wait, it's not it.
Goddamn.
Oh wow.
Nobody got it.
What a shock.
I considered
Slash
that. I
my own
really did.
titles.
Put in your titles now.
Whatever like this. Whatever like this freaking trailer.
And here are your choices.
Why can't I like things as much as I want? I want to spam click the like button.
And here are your picks.
Goddamn.
Oh, a freaking good one.
Goddamn, now I'm all the way at the bottom.
Oh no, you're tied
Oh,
for the
no.
bottom.
Nice.
I'm gonna get the ball.
Tied on the bottom. What the hell? What the hell? I don't know what I'm looking at.
Here are your choices.
Death. This is what dying looks like.
Incorrect.
Super. Garrett wishes.
And
Death. It's just death. You're dying.
well, fuck.
Oh, you're
I
up.
have
You're
the
ahead of
bottom now.
the bottom. I always knew salmon was the bottom. Wait.
I'm proud of my drawing, honestly.
Honestly, I had to freaking pull up Forbidden, the wise old memes just to get an answer.
Okay, here are your choices.
I don't freaking know.
And here are your
Giant Jesus man.
What do you mean?
Look, you idiot.
Damn.
Oh, wow, bro.
Epic.
That's pretty epic. I'll scale from 1 to 10.
On a scale of 1 to 10. That's epic. Bruh. Bruh.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm climbing the leaderboard.
Let's do that drawing thing.
How am I
Oh
supposed to draw
fuck,
this?
I have a perfect opportunity here.
How am I supposed to draw this?
Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck.
How am I? How am I?
God damn it, this is a perfect opportunity, but I'm gonna fuck it up, I know it.
Oh god. I can't write.
This is a brilliant artist's interpretation.
We believe in you, Garrett. Give us the art.
Nobody's believed in me. Who
Give
are
us
you?
the
What did
art.
you do with Corey?
Unhand the art, you fiend.
Hold on. currently have to do some epic
If
strategy.
you don't hit send on your drawing in the next 30 seconds or so, it'll be lost. Don't be that.
Like Minecraft 6.
Great.
Okay,
All
there.
the pictures are in. Type in a title now.
The furry box.
I know exactly what this is.
Yeah, me too.
And here are your choices.
Comedy.
Everybody
what
knows the
people
fucking
picked.
answer.
I like how he was stuck in that box for like 20 minutes because he was in survival mode, but we were too preoccupied being deafened by stall playing over and over again.
Wow. Okay. Bruh.
Oh, I'm stuck in a funny
Enter your titles.
See,
How-
my
what-
handwriting's not too good.
Yeah, and that's why we should play Quiplash instead of this if you're trying to write words, Salmon.
Well, somebody decided to give me something that I'm supposed to write.
Whenever Alexis thing draws in, catches everyone off guard because it's so angry.
It's his
Here are your choices. And here are your picks.
I think it's a unanimous vote.
Thanks for the points.
Liberal.
This is accurate.
To the top I go.
But by the way, Salmon, what does this actually say?
Minecraft hack sex and time travel.
Static.
Epic.
Type in a convincing title now.
What is this, a secret handshake?
Secret handshake, everyone guesses loss.
I know exact.
Garrett.
For the love of God, type it again.
And here are your choices.
You know what? That one was too specific. God damn you, whoever said Freddy got fingered.
And here are
Got
your
me.
choices.
Honestly, I voted it just for the reference.
A law of equivalent exchange. Oh come on,
What?
Sam probably.
Okay. Okay, this is
Pretty
my
good
only chance at
finger.
recovery. Will my beautiful masterpiece save me? Find out.
Incoming.
Freddy got fingered.
Put in your titles.
Oh boy.
Okay, here are your choices.
No, guys, don't choose the actual answer. Don't choose. No, you move.
I honestly have no idea what it is.
I worked so hard on this drawing. You better know what the fuck it is.
Pick what?
It was penis music. You're all fools.
What do you mean? I got him.
You're all fools. It is penis.
I see it now.
I'm a brilliant artist, okay?
Shit.
Well, fuck.
Communism always prevails.
I can't. I didn't.
Man, nobody likes it.
Communism always prevails.
That was gorgeous.
Absolutely.
Shall we do it again?
Yes.
Oh, we should do Quiplash.
Sure.
We can't make our own things for Quiplash, unfortunately.
Oh no, we should do Fibbage. Enough of
I
a
mean,
few.
quick.
Well,
flash,
I
we
need to take a crap, so I'll let whoever gets in first run the game.
I gotta take a piss.
It's time for the excretion break. I'm never gonna say that again.
Garbage being the VIP. Oh well.
I got this. I have the best drawing. Freddy got fingered. What was that movie even about? Like Lex, what was Freddy got fingered about?
Wait, what?
What was Freddy got fingered about?
I can't hear you. What the fuck?
What was Freddy got fingered about?
Oh, honestly, nobody knows. Also, I just realized I was supposed to be drawing myself. Okay.
Hello, cat.
Kick your cat.
No,
Why?
because I'm not Gart. I'm not gonna disable my cat like Jack's horse.
God, the Jack Horse thing was so long ago.
It was. Wait, your horse is disabled? Just re-enable it. Now waiting on Corey.
Apparently he said he was taking your crap.
This might take a while.
Hello, kitten. Hello, kitten.
Load. You gonna lay down?
You know, I'm just gonna start this. Wait. PP. Alexis PP by Gart.
Salutations and welcome to Drawful. I see there are 3 of you. Get those fingers ready.
Hey,
Let's
Sam,
do
quickly,
this.
look at all the drawing.
Okay, the drawing prompts are out. They should be on your devices now.
God damn.
Things that are kind of weird,
Do this to me.
like Pimento Loaf or The Mentalist. Draw a picture on your device that would have that title, and when you're done, hit send. You'll get points for each player that can correctly guess your title. So, get to it.
Already made me draw those.
I keep getting mine and I don't like it. Now my cat has to watch me draw this cursed image. You stay right there.
there's left to do is refine.
All
God, I
right,
hate
your
this.
drawings are in. Let's take a look.
Oh.
Use your devices to type in what you think the real title for this picture could have been. Here are your choices. Try to pick the real title and avoid all the garbage everyone else typed in.
I could get fooled, duped, but
I have no idea. Gotta go for this
And
one
here are
again,
your
huh?
picks.
Wow, how did you guys get that?
it's less fun when you see the same prompt twice.
Okay, the next drawing. Enter your titles now.
What the? Oh.
Hi. Wanna say hello?
Really taking your sweet time there, Gart.
And here are your choices.
Oh, I see what you did there.
And
Gonna fuck people
here are your
up.
picks.
Worth the try. And you can't blame me on that. I mean, it's a good idea. Can't really use it in this.
What? Bullshit.
I'm tied with Lex.
Let's take a look at our next drawing.
If this is what I think it is.
Is it what you think it is?
It's what I think it is. It's gonna be a really boring game.
Oh god, how?
Gart, what the hell are you doing?
I can't.
I'm serious. Time is up. Here are your choices. And here are your picks.
Yay.
Well, shit.
It's time to draw again. You should know how this works by now.
No.
This is an actual real drawing, by the way. This is real. It's also not submitting, which is kind of dumb.
Uh-oh. Is it gonna end up?
They're gonna do the exact same
Give
again.
it 30 seconds. Better not be another piece of lost history. 1, 2, 3.
I like how we now have
Four.
command of the stream.
Yeah, we can do whatever we
This is
want.
sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
Go download it. And Mafia City. And Dragon City, and all the cities. Yeah, and Sim City. City Skylines. Just get
Alright,
'em
I'm
all.
rejoining. We've got another piece of lost history, everybody.
Nuts.
And it's not letting me back in. What the fuck?
30
Cat
seconds
left,
left, y'all.
cat
Let's
left.
wrap it up. What you're doing is probably not
Telling
gonna
me
be
it's
that
gonna
great
be
anyway. Not like it costs
Garp
us.
9.
It's a repeat.
the lost history.
I have to
on our notes.
improvise that now.
Like from now on, don't make good drawings or else they get lost.
I hit send. Well, fuck you too. I don't know what's up with that. It's just not working.
Okay, let's take a look at your artwork. All right, let's do another one.
I swear to God, it doesn't let me submit this answer either. I'm going to kill someone. I'm gonna go kill someone. It's stuck loading. What the fuck, Jackbox?
Come on, typing time is almost up.
Don't fucking whine at me. You're not letting me play. Okay, well, I have been kicked out. I fucking
And
hate
here are
this.
your choices.
You know, world.
Cool, later. I'm fucking angry.
Should we just stop?
Yeah. Corey gets back.
Or I could just leave Jackbox. Let do something else.
You can
I guess.
stop the stream yourself, can't you?
Yeah, I can stop. I can stop the stream.
Let's see what people picked.
Yay. Yay. Wait, am I actually gonna win?
Okay, I'm gonna just leave Jackbox if that's alright.
Up next.
Wait, try and guess this one.
Slime. Salmon.
Yes.
I'm gonna
stop
stop
the
stream.
Alright. This
Okay.
was fun, I
This
guess.
This
concludes
concludes
the
the
funny
funny
stream.
stream.
Yeah,
Funny.
this concludes the stream. The
Have a good night.
yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah.